Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan Ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. I'm very bad at maintaining relationships, especially among friends and family. It's because I really don't care much about their lives. I am more concerned about myself, underprivileged people, and society as a whole. But this results in extreme loneliness. I don't have anyone to talk to on a personal, intimate level. How to tackle this loneliness? So first of all, we need to realize that our commitment to the society, to the community, to the world includes our friends and family members. There's no teaching that says, thou shalt be in the seva of the world, minus your family and friends. Thou shalt dedicate oneself to the community, except of course for anybody you know or are related to. Doesn't say that. What the teaching says is, don't think that those are the only world. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit your caring only to those who live under your four walls, or only those who you consider my people, us. But it certainly doesn't say exclude them. And what we get sometimes is this spiritual disconnection that arises from almost a very subtle spiritual arrogance. There's this sense of, I'm not interested in you. I don't have time for you because I'm in the service of the world. I remember when I first was going to take sannyas, because typically in India, where India is the land where this culture of sannyas has come from, or we have, in the Buddhist monastic traditions, you've got other Eastern countries where their monastic tradition has come from. But it's these lands of the East in which that sannyas parampara, that tradition, has come from. And what you have in the land of the East is a real understanding amongst the society of the value of our monastics, of the sannyasis. So even though in a family, obviously, parents' hearts, any color, any race, any religion, any region. But nonetheless, in India, for example, there's always this great cultural support. If a family member takes sannyas, even though the family themselves may miss that person, there's this whole respect and reverence and support in the community that says, wow, matlab, what a blessing that in your family, now you have a sadhu sant in your family now you have this saint in your family. I mean, it's huge. But in the West, that doesn't exist. And I remember when I was going to take sannyas, talking to Puja Swamiji about this tradition in India where once you've taken sannyas, you really pretty much don't talk to your family. That all of those relationships are really cut off. And he said, but not for you. He said, first of all, your parents living in Los Angeles are not doing anything that impedes your spiritual life here in Rishikesh. It's not like they're micromanaging your day-to-day life or asking anything of you. They had no demands on me. He said, but also, when you are dedicating yourself now to seva of the world, it doesn't mean seva of the world minus those who gave you birth. They live in a culture in which if suddenly you stop speaking to them, instead of being respected, people are going to think, my God, what did you do? That your own daughter would, now not talk to you? Like, people would think, my God, you must have done something. And of course, they had been amazing, wonderful, beautiful parents. So I mention this because when you take sannyas, it's a dedication to a service of the world. No discrimination, no bhed-bhav. But it's not the world minus your family. Especially when you come from a culture like I did, where that family would actually be deeply hurt if you cut off ties. And I mention this here because as the questioner says, I'm not interested in them, I'm much more interested in the greater good. Well, your family is part of the greater good. Your family is part of the society, of the community. So that care that we give to the community, to the world, we also should give it to our own family and friends. Not being interested in them is actually, it's a way of cutting yourself off, and that's why you feel lonely. I mean, one of the greatest and most powerful spiritual tenets is compassion. We're taught to have compassion for the tiniest animals. I was telling a story the other night about His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who kept bending down to save little caterpillars. Well, if we are supposed to have love and compassion, caring for the tiniest little creatures, what God, what spiritual tradition would say, oh, you should really care about the caterpillar, but your parents, forget them. Care about the ant, care about the mosquito. But don't care about your family or friends. That's not a path that makes any spiritual sense. The teaching is, don't only care about your family and friends. Recognize that the caterpillar, the ant, the mosquito, the homeless people, the disadvantaged ones, they are also your family. They're not separate from you. But neither are those who do live in your home, who are of your blood. So do some introspection and really ask yourself, why am I cutting myself off from them? Why am I pushing myself into a place of loneliness? Because deep connection is one of the most important things in life. It's one of the greatest and most powerful paths, avenues, tools, keys to deep fulfillment. And so the spiritual path is not to be cutting out connections. The spiritual path is to be creating more and more connections. So it's not, I don't care about my family. It's, I now care about this caterpillar as though he were my family. I now care about the homeless person as though she were my family. So it's a path of expansion, not a path of contraction. If your spiritual path is causing you to contract in your heart, then it's time to reevaluate the path. It should be expanding. You should be loving more and more people every day. You should feel connected to more and more beings every day. Not less and less. More and more. Just not with any discrimination. So you don't have a tier system anymore. Now they're all family. And that's the connection that actually brings us the spiritual awareness, realization, awakening, but also peace and joy and meaning. And it eradicates loneliness along the way.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Om Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Alaya, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit rain.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. What is life and why are we here? We're here in these human bodies, which we've been very blessed to have after many, many, many incarnations. It's said that a human birth is one of the greatest things that you can have. This human birth is the pinnacle of evolution because it's said that only humans are able to actually experience spiritual awakening, God realization, self-realization. Only humans have the consciousness that enables them to really see and know that capital S self. So you're here in a human incarnation after God knows how many incarnations to get here for the purpose of your realization. That's why you are here as a human, is to use this birth to realize the self, which means to realize God. Right? Self-realization, sometimes we say self-realization, sometimes we say God realization. But it's the same. Because when you realize the self, that is the divine. When you realize the divine, it's not separate from the self. So that's why you are here, is to have that awareness. But along the way, we've also been given this thing called a human birth. And it's not something that we're meant to just ignore. We are meant to use this human birth as the very mechanism for our awakening. And that's why if you look at all of our scriptures, all of our teachings, the teachings don't say, abandon everything, forget that you are human, forget all of your roles and responsibilities, abilities, gifts, resources, forget them all, and just sit in a cave and meditate to get awakened. We don't have that teaching anywhere. And in fact, if you look at the lives of those, for example, like the Buddha, who left the palace, went and sat in the forest to get enlightened. Well, what did he do after getting enlightened? He came back. He came back to teach, to serve. The saints, the avatars, the divine incarnations. Well, you're going to find them in all of our scriptural stories and everything. You're going to find them in the world, bringing back light to the darkness, bringing back dharma to adharma. Sure, they may periodically spend periods of time in the forest, but then they're back in the world. We've been given this human incarnation not as something to push away, but as actually the very mechanism through which we come to our awakening. So through our human path, through our connection to others, to ourselves, to this world, through our love for the divine. When you think, well, if everything's God, if we say aham brahmasmi, soham, everything is just God, the core of Vedanta, right? There is nothing but God. Well, then why in the world is there such an emphasis on a practice of bhakti, right? I mean, if there's nothing but God, why such an emphasis on bhakti? Because bhakti is the way that in our human experience we connect with God. Yes, we may know on the highest, deepest level there is nothing but God. But that's a very hard place to actually live from. As you put one foot in front of the other and you go to work and you do your grocery shopping and you mow the lawn and you sit in meetings in your office, it's very difficult to move through the world with an everyday, constant awareness that there is nothing but God. And those are the moments that lead actually to ignorance and mistakes, because we can't really, unless you are an enlightened saint, you can't really hold that awareness all the time. And that's when then we get caught up. There's that great story of the devotees of the Guru who went into the marketplace one day. And as they're in the marketplace, suddenly there's this big shout, "Get out of the way, wild elephant! Wild elephant on the loose!" And so everybody runs out of the road because the elephant is barreling down the street. Except one of the devotees, they'd come in a group of a few of them, one of them says, I am God, the elephant is God, there's nothing but God, this is what our guru has taught us, what is there to be afraid of? Now everyone is yelling at him, get out of the way. The elephant guy, what do they call it? The Mahavat, the guy in charge of the elephant. He's yelling, wild elephant, get out of the way, maar dega aapko. He's going to kill you. But the man just says, I am God, the elephant is God. This is what our guru taught us, what to be afraid of. So eventually, of course, the elephant runs down the street, grabs this guy up in his trunk, flings him a couple 100 meters. The guy lands far off in a field. He's broken every bone in his body. Finally, his devotee friends and the guru, they've called the guru now, they finally find him lying flat in the field. And of course, not only is the guy in physical pain and broken, but he's furious. And he says to the guru, how dare you? Like, you told me something that wasn't true. I just followed your teaching, and look what happened. And the guru said, aha, that's your ignorance. When I told you everything was God, well, you didn't live with everything as God. You thought only you and the elephant are God. You forgot that every single person telling you to get out of the way was God. That the Mahavat, the elephant guy screaming at you to get out of the way, well, he was also God. But in your ignorance, you didn't actually understand what I said, and you just took it in this sort of spiritual arrogance of just you and the elephant are God, and then kuch nahi hoga. And this is what happens a lot in life. So when we realize that we are here, yes, everything is God, and we are meant to experience God through our human experience. Well, that's where the role of bhakti comes in. Because as humans, loving God, that devotion flows. Yes, of course, I know God is not separate from me. But that's hard to stay aware of all the time. Whereas it's very easy to remember all the time how much I love God. Being in love with God is something really easy to remember all the time, wherever you are. But the fact that there's nothing but God, well, that's much, much harder. And so we are meant to live this life as humans, not pushing away our human experience, but using our human experience. In the same way, the body is a gift. We've got these eyes that see Mother Ganga. These eyes that behold the divine deities in the mandir, that behold our loved ones. We have these ears that can hear the chanting of Vedic mantras, that can hear classical music, that can hear kirtan. We have these beautiful senses. The body is not the problem. The mind is the problem. And so, as we use this human experience, it means we don't push away our humanity. We don't push away our heart that cries when it sees a starving child or a homeless person. We use that open, breaking heart as our path to connect to God in the form of that child the form of that homeless person who now we serve through our bhakti yoga, through our karma yoga. So our human experience becomes the path to know God.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. It suddenly dawned on me that I am completely alone in the world. No family, no close friends. I work from home online, so I don't even have coworkers. It never really bothered me before, but today I had a panic attack, worrying about not having anyone to take care of me if anything happened. I am truly afraid. There's a beautiful story of a man who was a devotee of God, and he suddenly woke up in the middle of the night one night with this dream, this nightmare rather. And he called out to God and he said, God, I just had this nightmare. I was looking back over the path of my life like I was walking over a beach. And in the sand, I could see throughout most of my life, there were two sets of footprints, mine and yours. You were always with me. Except, he said, except at the moments of my life where things were really bad, really difficult. In those moments, he said, I only saw one set of footprints. He said, how is it? How is it, God, that in those times that I needed you most are the times that you left me? How could you have abandoned me when I really, really needed you? And God said to him, my child, those are the times that I carried you. That's why there's only one set of footprints, because I carried you. And I love that story because we aren't ever alone. As long as we realize that God is there with us. There's a beautiful line in the prayers that we chant each morning here that says, Tu akele nahi pyare. Ram tere saath mein. My child, you are never alone. God is always with you. So many times in life, people bring people into their lives just for the sake of koi hona chahiye. There should be someone, I shouldn't be alone. But what ends up happening is, instead of that person they've brought in being the one who actually offers peace and solace and care, that person actually ends up being the one who steals their peace, steals their joy, steals their freedom. But in our minds, we are so afraid that we feel like, "Wo to kam se kam koi to hai. Tika, sir dard hai. Tika, they're difficult. Tika, they make me miserable. Lekin kam se kam koi hai. Bhagwan na kare kuch ho jaye. At least somebody is there." And this is actually a really tragic way to have any kind of relationship. Relationships should not be insurance policies. That it's, I'm afraid when I get old and sick, no one will be there. Therefore, I'll be nice to you now. For 30 years, I'll pay the premium of being nice to you so that when I'm old, you'll take care of me. This is not a relationship. It's an insurance policy. But our relationships should not be insurance policies. If all you need is insurance, put your money into an insurance policy. At least actually at the end of the day, it will take care of you. People in your life, there's no guarantee. First of all, there's no guarantee that they won't get sick and die before you do. Right? I mean, imagine that you've only got people in your life or someone in your life because you're worried no one will take care of me. You don't even want this person in your life, but you just keep them there, taki someone is there. And then long before you need them to take care of you, you find yourself taking care of them. This is how life works. So there should never be a relationship that's based on that type of insurance. Love is love. We should be with people because we love them. Whether we love them because they're family, we love them because they're friends, we've brought them in to our life because we love them. But don't sell yourself out. That somehow you are so weak, so insecure, so afraid that you're prepared to have relationships for decades that you don't even want to have, just so that when you get old and sick, someone will take care of you. This is not how to live. Have relationships that are rooted in love for today. And if, as the questioner asked, they said, I'm a loner. I've always been a loner, but now I'm afraid. Well, connection is actually beautiful. As human beings, we are wired for connection. Our instinct, our biological instinct, our neurological instinct, our emotional instinct are all wired for connection. It doesn't have to be romantic. We've got a beautiful history, a beautiful tradition of ecstatic monastics. So it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. But we are wired for connection. And so you should find ways to be connected. If it's not to a family, maybe it's to those you serve. Get a volunteer job. Do something in the community. Work in a soup kitchen. Volunteer at an orphanage, at a school, for a nonprofit. Do something that puts you into a community in which you're serving. Put yourself in a community in which you're meditating. Go to a temple. Pray, meditate, do yoga, chant kirtan. Do art, do music. Whatever it may be. But communities are really good for our health. There's lots and lots and lots of science, from immunity to psychology to neurology to a beautiful field called psychoneuroimmunology that, as the name implies, actually brings them all together. That gives us really, really clear evidence that community is really good for our health. It's really good for our emotional health. It's really good for our physical health, actually. That's the immunity part. So find a community. Doesn't necessarily have to be one you live in, but obviously the more time you spend in community, the better. And if your work is online, find something that's not online. Now that COVID is, by God's grace, opening up, the world is opening up again, find a community. Again, yoga or meditation or prayer or a mandir, a temple, a church, a mosque, a synagogue, whatever it may be for you. Or really, even just like an art class, people who sing kirtan, people who make music together. But have a community. Because it'll give you that connection, but don't do it because it's good for your health. That's a byproduct. Like, okay, it's fine to know that it's good for your health, but don't spend your days around people you'd rather not be around just because it's your insurance policy. Good for my health today, they'll take care of me in the future. It's much better, in that case, to just anchor yourself to God. If you don't have the benefit of a community and you are still slowly creating one, in the meantime, just anchor yourself to God, knowing that God will always be there. Always there with you. Nature, spend time in nature. In the woods, in the trees, in the forest. Connect with the community of nature. But yeah, that connection is really critical. We are social beings. And that doesn't mean superficial gossip over chai. It means deep connection. So find it. Find it as much as you can, wherever you can. It'll serve you well today. And as a byproduct, but don't think about it now, it'll serve you in the future also.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. Controlling the mind and the distractions. There's an external way and an internal way, and you need to do both. Externally, you need to do whatever you can to minimize your distractions. So the first thing I would suggest is turn off all notifications on your phone except for when it actually rings. Nothing else should beep, buzz, bling, vibrate. Whenever you need to check if you've got a message, you'll check to see if you've got a message. If somebody's house is burning down, they'll call you. They're not going to just text you, hey, could you please send the fire department? Hope you see this soon. They're going to call. Any emergency, we call. Nobody texts in an emergency. We call. So the first thing I would do is turn off every sound-making notification on your phone, except for the ring. The next thing I would do is I would create as much of a daily schedule as you can about when you are going to engage with things that are by nature distracting. Your email, your messages, your social media. We've all got to do it. But have some times of the day, depending on your work, depending on, your lifestyle. But it shouldn't be that there's a message and we immediately jump to it. There's lots of research these days on focus and productivity and attention. And actually how, even with all of our new technology, we are significantly less productive than we were 20 years ago. We get less done every day than we did 20 years ago. Now, it seems like we're getting a lot more done, because see, I've messaged this one, I've done this, but we actually get a lot less done. And the reason is, every time you get distracted from a task, they say it takes you 23 minutes. Now, I've tested myself. It doesn't take me 23 minutes. I mean, maybe it does neurologically and I'm just not aware of it, but from my own experience, but it takes me a good 2 to 3 minutes to get back in the flow of what I was doing. Sometimes a little bit longer if what I was doing was really creative. I mean, if I'm writing, it's going to take maybe 10 minutes to get back in the flow. But even so, even a 2 or 3 minute to get back in the flow of something I'm doing that's not necessarily that creative. Well, that's a lot of 2 or 3 minutes when it happens every 10 minutes. You're essentially then spending a third of your life getting back on track. And it's hard. I mean, this is something on a personal level I struggle with. Like, how do you navigate it all? And what I have found is if you can just decide, like, okay, for the next hour, 2 hours, I'm not going to look at messages. I'm not going to look at my emails. I'm going to do this thing that I need to get done. What you'll find is that you actually are more productive And that when you do pick up your phone again or open your email again 2 hours later, you're able to get through it quickly because there isn't so much back and forth. But it just takes some planning and it just takes some deliberateness in it. The other thing I would do is don't multitask. Multitasking has been shown, again, this is by recent science, to again make us significantly less productive. We think we've become so productive. People will say that they can do lots of things at once. They can't. What they're doing is jumping rapidly back and forth between different things, not actually doing any of them well, making lots of mistakes. And so, and this is true for all of us, just really figure out, okay, for the next 15 minutes, 2 hours, I'm not going to look at a message or an email until this task is done. I'm not going to start another task until this task is done. And from a meditative perspective, things like walking, eating, where we tend to try to make use of the time, right? I've got to walk from here to there. Well, I might as well check my messages and don't. Use it as a way to just reconnect with the breath. Reconnect with the moment. A, texting while you walk is dangerous. But B, it's really bad for the mind. Just allow yourself, just walk. Feel the earth. Watch your breath. Same when you eat. Don't watch TV. Don't be on your phone. Just eat. Just eat. Be with it. Be present. Food is God. I heard you all in there eating the other night chanting the Bhojan mantras, right? Brahma Pranam, Brahma Havir, Brahma Gano Brahmanahutam, Brahmevatena Gantavyam, Brahma Kardam Samadhina. This experience of eating, right? This is the divine. This isn't just a task to get done. This is the divine. The divine is feeding and the divine is eating. Aham Vishwanaro Bhutar. I heard you all doing all the beautiful mantras. The divine is feeding the divine. Of the divine. Well, this is not something to be distracted while it's happening. So just eat. That's the external stuff. Put all of these practices in place. But then you've still got, of course, your mind, which in and of itself jumps around. And this is where the power of a mantra is so powerful. Because if you give the mind something to do, it will do it. And so if you have a mantra given by a guru, it's doubly powerful because then it comes with that power of the guru. But even if you don't, you've learned so many mantras. You could choose one of those, which are obviously longer mantras. Or you can just choose, what we call the sort of mool mantras. The more basic, fundamental, foundational mantras. You can choose mantras based on a different divinity. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. right? I mean, there's so many beautiful, beautiful options. Choose a mantra. And again, if you've got one or have the opportunity to get one from the Guru, doubly powerful, 10 times as powerful. But if not, just chant a mantra. Choose one. And just keep chanting it, keep chanting it, keep chanting it, keep chanting it. And you'll find that the mind anchors itself into the mantra. And it just stops the habit of jumping all over the place. This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on Om Times Radio.